Hey everyone, I'm Neil. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Flags Only, your home for flag football news and stories. So, for today's episode, I want to cover two stories that have really caught my attention. One is really huge, and that's more details are emerging about the pro leagues that the NFL and TMRW Sports have teamed up to create. We're getting a drip of information, but there was a big news drop earlier this week about that I want to cover, and I will get to that as we dig in. But before I get to that, I want to cover a smaller story, but smaller in the sense that it's college related, but really to me is not actually that much smaller than the NFL and the pro leagues. And obviously, a lot of the money and attention and the news cycles get keyed in when you see the word NFL and Tiger Woods and Tom Brady, Serena Williams, and all of that. And again, I am going to get to that. But I actually want to just cover quickly something that's happening just a few weeks from now, and that is the Fiesta Bowl Flag Football Classic. And this is 8 team college tournament featuring, like I said, 8 teams, 8 D1 flag football women's teams from 8 universities, some varsity programs, some just club programs. But this is going to be, as far as I can tell, and what I've seen in the reporting, the first flag football collegiate tournament. This is happening on April 18th and April 19th. Um, and it is going to be a pool play to bracket format. And apparently, it's the first national collegiate title of its kind. There are going to be, like I said, 8 teams. The 8 teams are Alabama State, Arizona State, University of Florida, University of Georgia, Grand Canyon University, University of North Carolina at Charlotte, UCF, and USC. This is going to be happening again April 18th to 19th, and it's going to be, I believe, at Arizona State's fields. But the reason why I think this is important, again, I've talked about going from 0 to 1, and that might seem small, and the majority of people might ignore it. But the more often we go from 0 to 1, and then from 1 to 2, and it just keeps growing, like this is how this thing builds. So, really excited for this. I want to touch on a couple things about this before I move on to the bigger story. Just a little background. So, Alabama State is an interesting participant here, mostly because they were the first D1 school to offer flag football scholarships. And they launched that varsity program just last year, the 2024 to 2025 season. So maybe 2 seasons ago. And they were the first to do it. And that's not nothing. Again, there is this slow build on that S curve of you start out small with the early adopters, then you move to the early majority, and it just grows from there. Also notable is that Alabama State's coach is Tyrone Poole. He's a former NFL cornerback. He played for the New England Patriots. He won 2 Super Bowls with them. And so that pipeline and the intermingling of NFL talent leading into these pipelines at the youth, high school, college level, that just continues to happen. The Fiesta Bowl is being sponsored by Oakley. Oakley is interesting because Oakley is a brand that has really taken a special interest in flag football. So they are, I believe, the lead brand sponsor for USA Football. So everything we saw at the Fanatics Flag Football Classic, the USA Football guys all decked out in Oakley stuff. They also have a brand ambassador in Deanna Flores, again, lead quarterback for the Mexico national team. And so Oakley is really putting their planting their flag down, no pun intended, on flag football and really leaning into investing and putting their name behind flag football. So that's exciting to see. And yeah, I don't know if this is going to be televised at all. I'm looking into that. I haven't found that. I imagine some of these college programs are going to be trying to televise this thing. At least I hope we get to see highlights that we can put up on YouTube and the gram. But excited to see the first of its kind. And again, going from 0 to 1 is a big deal. So I'm excited for that. So moving on to really again, the big story, at least the story that's big in terms of getting the most interest in the news cycles, and that is there is just more detail starting to emerge about the NFL and Tomorrow Sports' partnership on launching pro leagues for men and for women in the lead up to the LA 2028 Summer Olympics. This is a league that two leagues that they want to launch apparently next year in 2027. And we knew about this. We reported on this a couple months ago. We knew that the NFL was investing $32 million, million bucks from each team into this league. And look, $32 million is a lot of money to me, a lot of money to most people around the world. But in terms of thinking about professional sports, that's really a drop in the bucket. I mean, each of these NFL franchises is worth a billion plus. And think about just the value of the NFL as a whole, billions and billions of dollars. So $32 million is kind of a fraction of that. And um, more clarity, I will say, came into light this week. So they released a lot of press revealing a lot of the other investments in this venture. And so it's not just $32 million. That is just the NFL's contribution, but actually they're starting out with 192 million. So 32 million from the NFL and then 160 million that they've actually raised from investors. And when you take a look at the investors, which range from really sophisticated firms to individual athletes, you can really start to get a sense of what is happening here. This is the time to pay attention. Everyone always says, follow the money. Obviously, flag football and sports, to me, athletics is not just about money. Obviously, money is good for athletes. Money is makes the world go round. But, athletics is one of the purest forms of human expression we have. And so I really want to make it clear that this isn't just about the money. However, when you have real money pouring in, that is a sign of sophistication. It's a sign of maturation. It's a sign of evolution. And it means sophisticated folks with a lot of resources are taking this seriously. So, just starting with the individual investors in these pro leagues, what I saw is that the investors include Peyton Manning, Joe Montana, Steve Young, Larry Fitzgerald, Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, Billie Jean King, Alex Morgan, Serena Williams. Okay, some of the greatest athletes ever are investing in this. But now let's move on to the actual firms, the investment firms. These are companies whose dedication is to investing in things that they think will be profitable, will excel, and will be successful. So the firms that I saw reported, I think there was a handful of them, and apparently it was $15 million each. I need to double check that, but these are some huge names. So one of them is Bessemer Venture Partners. This is a VC firm that has invested in companies like Pinterest, Shopify, LinkedIn. They manage roughly $20 billion in assets. So they are primarily, as those names indicate, they're interested in tech and high growth. So for them to be investing in flag football is a pretty big sign. Another one of these firms is Blue Pool Capital, which is apparently the family office of Jack Ma, who's the founder of Alibaba. He is Blue Pool also has ownership stakes in the Brooklyn Nets and the New York Liberty. These are obviously basketball, NBA, WNBA. They have stakes in the Miami Dolphins and Barclays Center. So for them to be putting capital up into women's and men's flag football is another good sign as well. And you start looking into the other ones like Ariel Investments, Dynasty Equity, Silver Lake, Sixth Street. I mean, these are companies, these are serious companies that invest in sports around the world. They have billions and billions of dollars in assets under management. So serious, sophisticated investors are starting to pour in. Notably, so I said Serena Williams was one of the investors. Her husband, Alexis Ohanian, who co-founded Reddit, he's also investing in this as well. He is a huge contributor and champion of women's sports and invests in women's soccer as well. His firm is getting involved. We have Arctos Partners, Bolt Ventures, Tribe Ventures. These are, again, you can look them up, but these are serious companies that have their hands all over sports, women's sports, men's sports, from football to the NBA to the WNBA to soccer. They are everywhere. So Bolt Ventures is led by David Blitzer, who's a co-owner of the 76ers and the New Jersey Devils. We have hockey and basketball there. And so, like, again, the sophistication and the ties to real major sports leagues, it's all happening. This is all happening right now. I've said before, we are lucky to see this happen. It's really cool to be at the start of something. And I'm going to jump into it more in a different podcast, but I put out an article, more of an opinion essay about the similarity of how flag football could be following soccer's trajectory. That's a lofty goal. Soccer is probably the most popular sport around the entire world, just given the number of players that are involved. I think the World Cup drew something like 1.5 billion eyeballs, and has huge numbers behind it. But it's really cool to think about the sky being the limit on flag football. And just a reminder about some stats: flag football, by the numbers, is the fastest growing sport in the world. There's currently 20 million players around the world. That's at different levels. Um, and just in the US alone, we have 4.1 million youth playing flag football, and that's a 50% increase from 2020. And so you look at the stats, you look at the metrics and the growth of what is happening here, the surge in popularity, and then all of these sophisticated firms. These are tech interested, tech forward, VC capital backed firms investing in flag football. Something really huge is happening. It just is. And we are watching that. Again, the world of flag football is fragmented. There's only, a handful of Division One varsity programs currently, 7 or so. Last time I checked, I just talked about this first ever college tournament in the Fiesta Bowl. Um, but we are watching things go from 0 to 1 and 1 to 2 and beyond. And this is a rocket ship, so it's time to hop on. That's it for me today. Thank you, everyone. Looking forward to the next one.